everyone, welcome back to the second episode of Sober Counsel for IT professionals. My name is Malcolm MacDonald, and today's topic is about prioritization. It's a very important topic to me, and it's going to be a real struggle to keep this short because I've got so much to say on the topic of prioritization. I think it's one of the most important things that an IT project area can do, because we all know that there's just never enough capacity within an IT team to deliver all the projects that a business would want. And culturally, it's also a thing that many businesses resist. Prioritizing is not something they want to do. They want everything. They want all of these projects. We want them all delivered. And why should I then say what order I want them in, because I want them all? And I think that the real challenge is convincing everybody that there's a real benefit in taking the time to prioritize, because it's very difficult. And often in a meeting where prioritizing is not going well, I would say something like, what you need to do is imagine that you can only get one of these projects. This year, we're going to deliver just one. Which one is it? Which one is it that you really want? And once you've decided which one that is, we'll say, okay, we can give you that one. Now, if we give you another one, which one is that? And that is the process by which prioritization should take place. Another very important thing to remember is that organizations have strategies which come with strategic objectives. And every single project should be done to the furtherance of one of those strategic objectives. So as we create the list of project priorities, we should put all the strategic objectives of the organization along the top, and we should attach each of the projects to one of those strategic objectives, which means that each project we do is taking the organization forward. We should really have hard discussions about projects that don't belong to any of those strategic objectives. Are we missing a strategic objective? Or is this project not necessary? Or is this project framed incorrectly that it actually should be taking a strategic objective forward, but it isn't? So I think those are very important concepts. Prioritizing also is a key function of management. We must realize that every management decision that gets made is in fact a prioritization, because we are saying, I want this outcome, and therefore I'm going to choose to do these actions, as opposed to doing other actions that would result in a different outcome. So we are prioritizing the one outcome over the other. And this is a very important function of management. Now, in exactly the same way, not doing prioritization actually means you're allowing someone else to do it, someone outside of your control. So for example, if you give a developer 5 projects to do, and he knows he cannot do all 5 simultaneously, he can do one at a time, he's going to choose which one to do. And he will deliver that one first, and he'll deliver the next one next, and so on and so on. So if we have not prioritized for him, then we are actually delegating prioritization to the developer implicitly. And that's not necessarily what you would like as an outcome as a manager. Another thing I'd like to quickly talk through, and I think this is probably a little bit technical, a little bit complicated, but hopefully everyone will be able to follow, is I've created a little bit of a model that hopefully will be able to describe why it is so important not to try to do all the projects simultaneously. And so we'll switch over to that model quickly, and hopefully you'll be able to see some benefit from doing things this way. Let me quickly talk you through what these elements of this model are. I've created a hypothetical 100 projects, exactly 100 projects that will take exactly 14,400 man hours to deliver. So if you have a productive development team with 10 developers working 30 productive hours a week, and those productive hours will result in exactly 14,400 man hours, they would be able to deliver all 100 of these projects. Now the actual size of each of the project is randomized, but it totals 14,400. So at the end of the year, if we've delivered all 100 projects, it will have taken us 14,400 productive man hours of work. Now you can see in this model here, we're only projecting to complete 32 projects. Now that's not very good out of 100. And there's a reason why, and you'll see it now. first of all, there's some developer and project overhead. If we've got 10 developers in one project, there's a very, very small overhead that you can see here of 0.4 hours per week. Okay, so half an hour per week overhead by having 10 developers. And what that means is a meeting with one developer would take a lot less time than a meeting with 10 developers. A project stand-up, some planning, some architecture design, etc., etc. There's all of those elements have a small overhead by having extra developers in them. Also, as we add projects, simultaneous projects that we're trying to do at the same time, we will have an overhead that relates to adding extra projects. Also, and in this particular model, I've exaggerated it dramatically, we have one halt per week where we wait for an answer from business. And we've estimated that wait will be 20 hours. So it's going to take over 2 days for someone to come back with an answer. Now, 2 days doesn't sound like a lot. You receive an email, you've got to go and do some research, you've got to have a meeting with some people and figure out what the answer to this question is of how this business process should run or how this business rule should actually operate because we've misunderstood it before. 20 hours is not a lot. It elapses very, very quickly. And in this scenario, where we have 10 developers standing still until those 20 hours have elapsed and the answer comes back, we're wasting 200 hours a week. And that is a serious amount of hours, only 99 productive hours in a week in this scenario, resulting in our 32 projects only. Now, there's a number of things we can do about this. One, we can try and encourage the business to respond quicker. Sometimes it's not going to be possible. Sometimes it requires a workshop to figure out how to resolve the problem. And the workshop requires coordinating diaries, and that can take days. Secondly, we can try and improve our business requirements and improve our technical design to the point where we have fewer of these halts per project per week. Thirdly, we could add more projects simultaneously so that while we're waiting for that answer, we can switch context to a different project and carry on with something else. Now, that's not always ideal, but it is sometimes the only thing that you can do other than just standing still. And standing the whole team still is just really not a good thing to be doing. So we could add a second simultaneous project, and suddenly the world is different. Because now I'm not waiting those 20 hours. I'm spending 5 hours here doing a context switch where all the developers have to set up their PCs to look at a different piece of code, to build to a different environment, to find where they left off the last time they were working on this piece of code, and so on and so on. I think half an hour is actually quite a conservative number there. I think it can be longer than that. But I've estimated here that every time a developer has to task switch, it takes half an hour. So in this scenario, we have 10 developers switching, and so that's 5 man hours of work in order to do this task switch, this context switch. So that's a whole lot better than waiting around for 20 hours doing nothing until we get an answer back from business. So just adding one extra project that we're running simultaneously here made a huge difference. And actually you can see that now we're projecting to be completing 97 projects. So sometimes adding projects is a really good thing. But I'm going to switch modes now to talk about, to show you a model. Well, it's actually the other half of this model that is just showing exactly these values, but in a table form. And if I change these values, you'll see what happens to this table. Now, if you look at the top row here, where we're only doing one project, you can see very clearly that it's very different. With 10 developers, we're able to do these 32 projects here. But suddenly, if I add a second simultaneous project, we can achieve all the projects with only 11 developers. How can we get it down to achieving all 100 projects with just the 10 developers? Well, there's a number of things I can do. I can say that, well, if we improve our business requirements and our design, we can maybe have one of these critical halts on a project once every 3 weeks instead of every week. So we'll make this 0.3, and bang, we have a result. It's not quite good enough. We've got to 99, but we still don't have 10 developers delivering all 100 projects in a year. Well, what we could also try to do is convince the business to respond faster. Let's be optimistic here and say that on average, it's a 1-day turnaround. So we're looking at 12 hours, 12 working hours to turn around a requirement. And we are still not quite there. So we're still at 99 with 2 projects. You can see clearly here that adding more projects isn't going to help you. But sometimes we have to. We very often are pressed to do, let's say, 5 projects simultaneously because we have different stakeholders that all have to be satisfied, and it may become necessary for these 10 developers to be working on 5 projects simultaneously. It doesn't mean that all of them are going to be working on all 5 projects, but across these 10 developers, we're going to be working on 5 projects. What if we could get the developers to work a little bit more efficiently, spend a little bit less time in meetings, such that this 30 hours can go to 31 hours? That could make a difference. In fact, it does. It makes the very difference that we need. So we're saying by improving business requirements to the point where we have less critical questions that have to go back to business that halt projects, i.e. that happens every 3rd week instead of every week, where the turnaround time from business on these critical questions is 12 hours instead of 20 hours, and the productivity of a developer is slightly more efficient to the point where we're getting 31 productive hours instead of 30 productive hours. We now have delivered, according to that table and this model, 100 projects with up to 3 simultaneous projects with just 10 developers. If we move up to 11 developers, we can see that you can achieve that with 7 simultaneous projects. So now you have a slight buffer here. You could say, if we move up to 11 developers and we're forced to deliver 5 projects simultaneously, we can comfortably deliver all 100 projects within a year with all of these factors taken into account and all of these overheads taken into account. So a useful thinking tool. I'm not saying this one's accurate. I'm just saying that this is a concept that could be used to actually build in your specific scenarios, your average turnaround times, your average break periods in a project, where how often do you have breaking questions where the project has to halt until they're answered. So maybe draw the data from your project and understand how to put that data into a model like this, and then you can predict and you could actually show the effect of making small changes and where those small changes will have an impact in terms of improving your project turnaround. So that was a quick talk on prioritization. I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that you found it useful. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, make some comments if you think that was nonsense, if you think this model won't work. I'd love to discuss that with you. And thank you to all of you who have subscribed to the channel, and to those of you who've commented on various social media channels. Very grateful for your support, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you very much.